What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Bold Call Fantasy Football Podcast. We are taking a look at running back rankings for your fantasy football drafts. We're looking at everything. Best ball draft. We got regular season-long drafts, super flex. We got it all covered, and we're taking a look at the running back position 2023. With me to break it down from RotoWire, my partner in crime, my brother from another mother, Alan Sizlowski. What's up, my man?
How are you? Good to be back on the Bold Call. Running backs is probably one of the most interesting things to talk about this year because, man, it is ugly at running back. There's more running backs to start this year than there ever has been, Geek, but there's just almost zero running backs left that have the full workload. So I am very excited to see what you have on the rankings for the DFS Army to win their leagues this year.
Can I tell you, I love the running back position this season. I haven't liked it as much as this year in years because I think the field is wrong about a lot of these rankings. I think we can get serious edge, and I think this is the first year in forever and inexplicable why starting running backs with 3 down potential workloads, maybe not on the best teams, but with 3 down potential workloads are available in rounds 4, 5, 6. Unheard of.
What happens is this year, 2023, if you're an off-season drafter, do a lot of best balls and a lot of leagues that draft in like June, July, August like we do, there's a thirst for the elite wide receivers. And I understand why. So what that's doing is it is pushing those backs down a couple rounds. Certainly, we remember the days of the first 24 picks. 22 of them were running backs. I mean, it was running back for years. And even last year, I mean, there was 9 of the first 12 picks, I believe, were running backs.
Yep.
This year, you're not going to see that. Now, in some of your home leagues where it's old school and they've been playing for 100 years, sure. Maybe you're still going to see a lot of running backs in there. But, for the most part, people are going to be looking at their consensus rankings, and you're going to have a chance to get a lot of running back points after you scoop up a bunch of receivers.
Big time. So it's exactly what you said. The fall off at wide receiver just feels very dramatic, or in rounds 4 or 5. And it feels worse than it is almost, but it feels really dramatic. Right?
Geek, what you want in your drafts, and this is a colleague of ours, Scott Pianowski, always says, you want 3 receivers in a 3-receiver league that start themselves. You don't want to have to, this guy gets 2 for 28, and then you don't know whether to start him the next week. So if Jamar Chase, for example, or Justin Jefferson have a bad week, you don't even think about it. You're starting themselves. So that's the argument for the receivers early. But I'm really excited to hear what you have at the top of your running back board for everybody.
I am as well. And so let's get into the running back positions. We're going to talk some tiers, and I want to weave in the strategy understandings, because I think that's really where a show like this can be helpful for people going into their draft. The DFS Army family, who the people who are watching this, they're going to draft. This is a real thing that they're going to be doing. And, just rankings alone isn't enough. I want to kind of get into the explanation of why and why these tiers are where they are and what you could really do strategically to get an edge. So starting off on my top tier of running backs, and you will agree because me and you are of the same mind, and this is already a bold call. Get ready for your minds to be blown. But my number 1 overall running back for the 2023 season is rookie running back Bijan Robinson, Atlanta Falcons. Number 1 overall, says Lowski.
Yeah, I have him number 1 overall, and we can get into the reasons why. What I found out, sometimes you find out what your rankings are when you actually are in drafts, and that means something to you. There are receivers that I would take ahead of Bijan Robinson. I thought originally when I started doing my rankings that I had with Bijan Robinson as the number 2 overall player, first running back. But what I realized is that, yes, agreement, first running back, but there's about 5 receivers that I would take ahead of him, maybe 4 at this point.
We'll get into wide receiver rankings. I think we all kind of know who that grouping is, and I totally agree.
So why Bijan then? Why do you have him above? Because the consensus is going to have Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler, Nick Chubb I've seen now moving up. Why is Bijan a better fantasy player in 2023 than those guys?
I love it. So, and this is the heart of the issue, right? People are like, what are you, stupid? Why wouldn't you take Christian McCaffrey first overall? So why wouldn't I take? Let's start with Bijan, rookie, fresh legs, no injury history, on a team on the Falcons that is extremely run focused. And when I say extremely run focused, I'm saying they made mediocre running back talent on the team last year.
Tyler Algier,
Algier, right? Like
fifth round pick.
the ultimate in mediocre, not a difference. Look good, right? 5 yards per carry. So this was a team that was able to produce positive outcomes. And I'm very much about the team and the running back position. Teams that tend to produce well at the running back position tend to do so no matter who you put back there. Remember years ago, I used to tell you whenever, Le'Veon Bell would get hurt, is like, it does not matter who's backing him up. You're playing him this week, right? Why? Because Pittsburgh with Ben Roethlisberger used to produce incredible outcomes to the running back position, regardless of who was back there. I think it's the same here. Bijan Robinson, you got the youth, but there are negatives. And the other problem for me, why Bijan? They're going to run him into the ground, 25 touches a game. Again, Algier was getting 20 or something like that at points last season. There's no real threat for somebody to take over the job, or you don't draft a running back first overall, first round to not run the crap out of them. And they need to hide their quarterback, but they have a quarterback who's almost there exclusively to like complement the running back. So to me, it's a no-brainer. You go with Bijan, but the second component, I think you'll agree here. I love Christian McCaffrey. Don't get me wrong. Christian McCaffrey has been one of the greatest fantasy football producers of this side of LaDainian Tomlinson, right? Like there was Marshall Faulk, there was LaDainian, and now there was Christian McCaffrey for a few years. Like he was that guy. The problem is I'm concerned about the 49ers. I'm concerned about managing his workload, especially later on in the season as we approach the playoffs. Is there any chance that you're going to be seeing 20 carries a game, Christian McCaffrey, in week 15, 16, 17, when he's on a playoff team? They're going to be trying to make the playoffs. They're going to try to keep their guys healthy. They'll be I'm just concerned. I don't think you're going to get more than 12 to 15 touches for McCaffrey. And by the end of the season, he's older, injury. He's a very small running back. There's too many red flags. And if you get an injured Christian McCaffrey in your first round pick, you've virtually lost your league. Like there is no coming back from that.
Yeah, I liken taking Christian McCaffrey to for you fantasy basketball players out there, to drafting Kawhi Leonard in his peak, right? You weren't getting 80 games out of him. You were getting like 60 games out of him, sometimes 50 games. Christian McCaffrey's been season-ending injury 2 of the last 3 seasons, and the 49ers, like you said, they're in a Super Bowl window. They're going to load manage him. In games where they're favored by 10.5, 9 points, you might see like 8 Christian McCaffrey carries. They're going to deploy a trio. Christian McCaffrey does have more game-to-game upside than Bijan Robinson, theoretically, because we've seen him do it.
And the team will score more frequently. We absolutely know he's a great pass catcher. We don't know that necessarily about Bijan yet.
Although all of the videos we're seeing
good.
online, he is not only juking linebackers, he is taking cornerbacks to school. I mean, Bijan Robinson, I agree that he's got the best floor-ceiling combination, less tread on the tires. And let's also take a look at the team context with Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson, who's the coach of the Atlanta Falcons? It's Coach Arthur Smith, who formerly was the offensive coordinator in Tennessee when Derrick Henry was getting close to 400 total touches and basically rode him. Derrick Henry, he's a fantasy football legend for that reason. So Bijan Robinson comes in, top 10 draft pedigree, was drafted 8th by the Falcons. And they've already, like you said, he's good. Tyler Algier will probably still be part of it. They're not going to totally discard Tyler Algier, but you want Tyler Algier to have 5 to 8 to 9 carries. You don't want Bijan Robinson touching the ball 35 times. That's not sustainable in today's NFL. If I've seen some pushback that Bijan Robinson hasn't, the argument is that he hasn't taken a snap in the NFL. But let's remember 2 very recent examples, Geek. Saquon Barkley, who was pick 2 in the real NFL draft, finishes number 1 fantasy running back when he was drafted. I believe it was in 2018. And then going back a little bit further, Zeke Elliott. He was drafted as a top 5 real NFL pick and finished as the RB3. So there are recent examples of...
Wasn't Todd Gurley number 1 his first
year? His rookie year, he did not do well, but that was the Jeff Fisher Rams. Right. And then, but Leonard Fournette was good too. But I'm saying, when you're drafting a guy in the first round of your fantasy football draft, you better be damn sure he finishes as a top 5 running back, or be confident in that. We never know for sure. I mean, a couple years ago, we were taking Jonathan Taylor, number 1 overall pick, and it didn't work out at all. So, there's probably, if you're okay with the risk of not taking a player that you've seen in NFL action, I'm with it. I'm doing it as well because the upside is so great. And let's say that tragedy strikes, we know who the handcuff is. And a lot of these running backs, we think we know who the handcuff is. Then how many times is like someone drafted Tyrion Davis Price to back up Christian McCaffrey, and then the guy's like a game day inactive. So he's got all the things you want. He's got a floor, he's got the workload, he's got the team context, and he has a handcuff if you want to handcuff your running back much later on.
Here's a beautiful thing. If you're a fan of the DFS Army channel of the Bowl Call Fantasy Football Podcast or our rankings, and you just want to follow along with them in your draft, I can pretty much guarantee you can get Bijan on your team. We are so much higher on him than the field. He is currently on average going RB3 or 4 overall. Never 1, never 2. So if you want this player, you can get him. It's no problem. He's there. If you're picking 5th, 6th. So I actually got him in a high dollar league.
If you have a top 6 picks, it's a no-brainer. The problem is, like, if you have pick 10, he might not get to you. But what are you going to do? You can't control who gets to you.
He might not be there pick 10, but I got him on pick 8 in a high dollar league that I'm in. And so he's just around. And I was happy with that pick. I was like, listen, and my strategy was to get wide receivers early. I said, you know what? I'm taking Bijan. I'll get wide receivers rounds 2, 3, and 4. Plenty of good ones.
Think about this, Geek. Right now, we already saw Cooper Kupp leave practice, and they're saying it could be a couple weeks. Would you rather have Bijan Robinson or Cooper Kupp, knowing what you know today?
I don't like anybody who's being wheeled out of practice like that. Just doesn't make you ever feel good. So,
but that was part of Cooper Kupp's risk. Was that like he's been, he's 30, he's been hurt a couple times,
getting dinged up, and it's a little bit scary. So we talked about our top 2. Austin Eckler is my 3rd overall, and I think that's pretty consensus. In terms of these 3 being the top tier anyway.
I would take Nick Chubb at 3, but I have no problem with someone who takes Eckler because he's moving up. So Eckler, he'd be my 4th guy. Doesn't matter. I'm not going to
include Chubb in that 1st tier group, though, if we want to call it that. So I have Eckler ahead of Chubb, but it's barely there.
But
so
there's a reason that though Eckler has been one of the running backs that's been complaining about his workload, and you know what I'm saying, like
too much.
Yeah. So
last season for Eckler, check this out. 127 targets, 107 receptions, 5 passing touchdowns, alongside 5 receiving touchdowns, alongside, and this is the unsustainable part, 915 yards, 200 attempts, and 13 rushing touchdowns. Now, I say it's unsustainable, but he literally did the same thing the year before, so he's done that 2 years in a row. But you go back before the last 2 seasons, and the most touchdowns he had rushing in a year was 3.
But that's with the Melvin Gordon years when Melvin Gordon
there was
was
somebody else there, and that's all fair and good. But part of the reason I have him ranked 3rd overall, they didn't really replace.
Eckler's a stud, man. Eckler's an absolute stud. Yeah, the only reason to knock him down is that he's 28 years old, and that he's one of the running backs that's been very verbally unhappy. Yeah. And if you'd want
I don't know about his workload. I've heard him bitching about how much he gets paid.
Right. And if he feels like he's underpaid, is he going to want to he's going to continue to try to lobby for someone to another running back to take those between the tackle carries, which could mean some goal line regression. Now, for example, I always thought that like the Chargers would sign someone like Zeke because that's exactly what Eckler wants. Is some relief on the goal line, and Zeke had 12 touchdowns last year. I know that he's not the player he once was, but listen, Chubb, Eckler, whoever you want, I have no problem with it. Both of the difference is that Eckler goes in the top 5 picks, and Chubb is a 2nd round pick. So if you don't see the difference between them, you obviously pass and wait for Chubb. If you think Eckler is the safer bet with the more upside, then you got to take him in the 1st round.
And I'm so down with Chubb as well, by the way. Right here, if you told me, so if you want to make an argument to me, and I'm going to push this over to you because you've got him ahead of Eckler, make the argument for Chubb for me, but I just want to clarify, I'm super down with this. Based on what Chubb did all of last season with no Kareem Hunt there, even like he miraculously figured out how to he's doing some Derrick Henry shit where even without the PPR upside, 2-3 targets a game, he was putting up 20 plus every single week. So make an argument for Nick Chubb for me, considering that they'll have better quarterback play. Maybe does that help him, hurt him? I don't know.
Helps him. So you hit on a lot of the main points, but the Browns' offensive line is number 1 or number 2, depending on how you rank the Eagles' offensive line. So best offensive line. Everyone agrees Nick Chubb is one of the most efficient running backs, well over 5 yards a carry every single year. So the yardage is going to be there. Kareem Hunt no longer there. You touched on that. And then the running backs behind him. It's not like they have someone that's a credible running back. They have last year's 5th rounder Jerome Ford. It's going to be right. And then the one knock on Nick Chubb was he was more of like a 22 to 30 upside catch player. Deshaun Watson in the past has dumped the ball off, and he's going to rely on Nick Chubb. So if we can get Nick Chubb to 58 catches to 61 catches, I mean, not only does that pay off, that smashes, because Nick Chubb still has that 1,600-yard upside. And if you were taking bets, who's going to lead the NFL in rushing touchdowns? He's got to be one of the top 5. So all the thing, with Deshaun Watson there, and if you believe in the Browns offense, and Nick Chubb he's never been a bad pick. You've never been like, damn, I drafted Nick Chubb, right? He's always been like, okay, I took him in the second round and it paid off. He's still the same price, but I think this year he actually has upside, and he's been an Iron Man too. He has missed some games, but for the most part, if he's there, he's just as good as any of these other guys, and he's in his athletic prime as well.
I love it. Yeah, I'm a fan. I think the Browns are going to be a decent to good team this year, and I like running backs on winning teams. So he checks off a lot of the boxes. I'm going to say that was tier 1. I think those 4 running backs: Bijan, Christian McCaffrey, Eckler, Nick Chubb, all worthy of, at worst, a late first-round pick. All 4 of them are worthy of that. So wherever you are, Chubb generally isn't going in the first round, but I don't have any problem if you took him there. So let's move on to tier number 2. We talked about our top 4, and for me, my tier 2 is 6 players. Now you might say, Kevin, that's a big tier. Well, so we do it in the VIP. So a 6-player tier, and I want to compare it to the Sislowski tier. And again, you are going to hear some bold calls in this group. I don't have consensus with ADP. So you tell me how crazy off I am, and where are you on your second tier? This is my bottom 6. So we're going to go 5 through 10 here. At number 5, I've got Jonathan Taylor.
Whoa. We got to stop there. You cannot take Jonathan Taylor there, given everything that's going on. He may hold.
You know what? I definitely have not adjusted for the.
Okay, so adjust right now. I don't think Jonathan Taylor. You could take him in the first 2 rounds.
You think Jonathan Taylor is going to be traded? I think nothing happens with him.
What happens if he holds out? What happens if Taylor has a little tiny ankle sprain he would have played through in week 7, and he's like, nah, I'm not playing.
All right, that's fair, and I'm going to allow it.
Okay,
so I will agree there. I did not adjust for that news because I ignore it. All right, so we can move him down a bit, but I'm still going to keep him. I'm going to move him to the bottom of this tier, but I'm keeping him in the tier 2. Okay. Because the bottom of this tier, we're going a long way in this one. So after that, Josh Jacobs.
Same problem.
Again, you can't. These guys are all claiming to hold out. I'm not going to allow it.
It's not hold out. I'm not worried about hold out. I'm worried about, will they play through things that they normally would, and would they not play through things that they normally would?
Let me adjust for that.
How do you not have Saquon Barkley as your next running back? That's what I'm trying to get.
He's in the tier. He's in this group. He's in the group.
All right,
he's in there. Just for Saquon Barkley next.
Okay.
I just think, listen, Josh Jacobs, I'm sorry, was better than Saquon last year.
I'm not. If Josh Jacobs was happy and paid, he would be in tier 1 for me.
There you go. So we're in agreement there. So yeah, we got Saquon Barkley, then Tony Pollard, Derrick Henry, and rounding out, we're calling this tier 2 for me. And I already said Taylor and Jacobs at the top. You can move them at the bottom if you're worried about the holdout stuff. Rounding out the group, Joe Mixon, who I love so much more than the field.
Yeah,
much more than the field. And I will make my arguments on every single one of these guys. But, across the board, like, let me just, Joe Mixon, right? The field is really weirdly low on Joe Mixon. Like, he's going maybe RB 15, 16, 17. He's going after ETN. I don't get it. There's no competition on that team. Samaje Perine is gone. Joe Mixon was already pretty good, but the biggest negative to Joe Mixon was that he had a problem pass protecting, and they would bring in Perine on 3rd down, 3rd and long on these situations that are often, or in the hurry up. That is the sexiest and juiciest time for a running back to be on the field. I need my running back in the game during the hurry. It's the last 2 minutes of the first half. I want my running back in the game. Why? Because that he gets 4 receptions, 40 yards. That's almost an entire game's worth of production on that one drive. So when you're out for that, and that's what Samaje Perine did to him, because Samaje was a better pass protector. Now they don't have a backup. Joe Mixon, explosive offense, is the lead back. They don't care about his health long term. They paid him. They gave him 2 years. This is a guy that you want on your fantasy football team this year, and you could get him. Joe Mixon is why you could take wide receivers in the first 2 rounds, because you're waiting. He's round 4. What round is Joe Mixon going in right now?
He's moved up a little bit. He's like going in the 4th, maybe 5th. But he's probably the 4th. The 4th.
It's up to 4, but my goodness, I was getting.
He was in the 6th,
and 7th round.
Yeah.
So he's moving up a little bit, but not enough. So that's my tier 2. Saquon Barkley in the mix. Derrick Henry. I think the Tennessee offense is going to be better than people think. The addition of DeAndre Hopkins, the advancement of Treylon Burks, the health of Ryan Tannehill. The only thing that ever held Derrick Henry back is when his team sucked. And they don't win, and then they go away from him. If you get a competitive Titans team, he will give you a vintage year. Yes, he's old. Don't care. Tony Pollard, we saw what he could do with the Cowboys when he started last season. For those few games, they didn't even need to give him 25 touches. He crushed it. A little concerned about the workload. I don't expect him to get more than 15 touches a game, but it could be enough. And then Josh Jacobs and Jonathan Taylor. There's nothing to talk about there. Josh Jacobs was ridiculous, all-purpose back last season. He'll do more of the same this year. Taylor is the one I'm most concerned with because of Anthony Richardson at quarterback, and probably won't catch any passes this year. But he's such a talent. He's going to bounce back. So that's where is your Seslowski? Where is your next tier? I gave you 6 names, tier 2.
Yeah, I like all the.
Where you at?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have Jonathan Taylor in that tier right now. It's just too dangerous. Josh Jacobs would be at the end of the tier. And again, it's not because I don't like those players. They obviously would be first-round running backs or top 5 running backs had their situation been straightened out. But all we could do is, if their situations get straightened out and they are happy, sure, you can move them up. But it doesn't seem like those things are going to be resolved anytime soon. And it's not like they can hold out. It just financially doesn't make sense. I'm just more worried about if the minor injuries that they would normally play through, they don't. And then you're missing games when you need them most, because there's other players later on that we like a little bit better. I like what you said about Derrick Henry. I have no problem with him. The one player that you didn't include in there that I thought you might was the rookie Jahmyr Gibbs on Detroit Lions. Now, it's funny. Like, I thought that he would be consensus, like a good 3rd-round pick, but it seems that there's a growing consensus, Geek, that it's a bad pick. Now, I took him in our NFFC high-stakes draft because of the PPR upside. Jahmyr Gibbs, top 2. He was picked 12th overall, first-round running back. Those guys tend to be very insulated, pass-catching profile. And, I mean, everyone's seen the video at this point. If you haven't, look it up on social media of how excited the Lions were to get him. Now, they do have David Montgomery. They signed him, who's a pretty good running back. And we remember what Jamal Williams did to DeAndre Swift's touchdown upside last year. David Montgomery, I think we like him better than Jamal Williams, and he probably has some serious touchdown upside. You could see them anytime that the Lions get down on the goal line, giving it to Montgomery. So that could be a problem for Gibbs. But I mean, I don't like to get us too far out in front of these rookies, but it seems like when you're picking the top 12, why can't Jahmyr Gibbs have 65, 75, dare I say 80 catches in year 1? So I understand there's more risk with him, but I would put him into that tier. But, there's going to be players that if that's not your bag, if you don't like taking rookies, then Jahmyr Gibbs is not for you.
You know what the fear is with Gibbs? And I'm just going to spell it out, because there's 2 ways that the Gibbs career goes, right? He's the same size as Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Jamal Charles. So you might initially be saying, hey, those guys did pretty good, right? They had some good careers. Christian McCaffrey, Jamal Charles. Yeah, awesome. But he's also the same size as DeAndre Swift. And we saw Swift, fail with this same team. So I think there's a little bit of, what if he turns into Swift?
Yeah, I think that might be like same team bias. I mean, the team told you everything. There was always a problem with Swift, right? Like, even when he was at Georgia, he was not more than like a 15-touch player. And I think that when we were taking him in like the late first round of our redraft leagues, that we were projecting like a higher workload for him, and he just didn't have like that dog in him. Like even on Hard Knocks, you saw they were kind of like, this guy's a little bit soft. He suffered from a lot of injuries. By all accounts, and again, we don't know Jahmyr Gibbs personally, that he's the complete opposite of that. He buys into that biting kneecaps narrative from Dan Campbell. So, listen, if you want to take Aaron Jones, who we have in the next tier, or if you have Cam Akers, those type of guys that go a couple rounds later, and not take Jahmyr Gibbs, I get it, man. But I took him. I was looking for the upside there. The other player who goes in this tier that I hope at this point you're with me. I've maintained that Breece Hall in the third round, now he's fallen to the fourth, is literally the worst pick in fantasy football. And Geek, I don't mean to throw shade on you that you did end up with him on your NFFC high stakes team, but I don't think
at the right round though.
I would never take him at the end of the fourth round. There's just been so many bad vibes about him because ACL tear. That's what Breece Hall had, and I'm curious to how you're gonna defend it. But week 7 ACL. Usually these guys are about 10 months to return to play, which gets them to week 1. But it's about 18 months or so until they're even themselves. And now they're talking about signing Dalvin Cook. There was rumors that they wanted Jahmyr Gibbs if he was on the board during the NFL draft. I think Breece Hall, I'll be drafting a lot of him next year. And if he was completely healthy, I might have even been taking him as the 1.1 this season. But for this, I don't take injured players generally coming off that ACL. So he's not going to be on my board in the top 5 rounds.
So, I'll just say this, and I agree with you in a lot of ways on Breece Hall, but more so on the injured players thing. I think a lot of them, again, this is a little more hopium discussion, right? Like, we're hoping that this guy is going to have a miraculous recovery, and we've seen it. We've seen it where players 10 months removed from an ACL look great. And you're like, wow. I'll give you an example. Chris Godwin last year, by the middle of the season, seemed like he was totally fine. The flip side, though, is I do think that...
Wait, what part of the season?
In the middle.
Middle,
yes.
Right, when you're already 2-6 in your fantasy league.
That's fair, but if I can find my way into the playoffs and I've got a Breece Hall and he, let's say, is fully healthy by weeks 7, 8, 9, okay, it could work out just fine. But of course, you're right. You're buying a player in the first 4 to 5 rounds that probably isn't going to be a good contributor for your team, at least for the first month of the season, and maybe longer.
If Godwin was going like the 8th round last year, maybe he got pushed up to the 6th at some point when the reports were good. Breece Hall was going in the 2nd, 3rd round up until recently. Now he's going into the 4th round. Again, those first 4 picks you could shoot for a little upside, but we made this reference earlier with so many good-looking soup cans, right? Why take the one that's dented? There's no reason for it. Now, later on in the draft, when all the rest of the soup cans have problems and dents, no problem.
No reason for the dented can. I love it. So, and you're right, and that is what Breece Hall is. So if we gave you another thing in this breakdown, it's beware of injury. I mean, I think Javonte Williams, we're not even discussing him because of his injury. He's really not going high in drafts. Although
he's
weirdly,
moving up now. Yeah,
well, because he's not even on the pup. It looks Javonte seems ahead of Breece Hall, as crazy as that could be. How is that possible? I don't know.
And by the way, in my seasonal leagues, I just want to circle back. I've moved Taylor in my ranks down to 16th running back overall.
Yeah, I'm not going to get that. I'm not going to do it because I'm not going to be that reactionary to what you would call cockamamie news. And to me, it's all cockamamie bullshit. All of these running backs are having a little hissy fit, and they're going to realize, no, we are not going to pay you. And if you whinge about it, we're still not going to pay you, and we're going to be, and you're just going to cost yourself. Sorry.
I agree with all of that. And again, I don't want to be repetitive, but I just believe that they can have a couple extra missed games when there's little dings that they normally wouldn't miss.
It's certainly possible. So, and you nailed Jahmyr Gibbs because he is right outside of my tier 2. So he is the beginning of my tier 3 for exactly the reason you just said. Because I don't know. I saw Swift not be that great. Montgomery's there. There's a couple reasons why it might not work out that well. But the more likely scenario is, he's what they wanted from Swift, but it wasn't. I don't think it was the team. It was Swift not being that good. And the Eagles are going to see that if he doesn't change significantly, the Eagles are going to be like, oh, shit. What is it? We bought a lemon. here.
I mean,
He's
they
just
didn't. They didn't pay anything for him. They
yeah,
basically they
that's
gave
right.
up a fourth that they get back a fourth in another year. So they gave a fourth next year to get a fourth back 2 years after that.
Literally, they gave up nothing, so they don't
Zero.
even care. And the
Yeah.
Eagles are the ultimate team if you want to talk about that devalue the running back. There's no team that devalues running back more than the Eagles. They don't care. Boston Scott still, doing his thing over there at like 5'9", 190 pounds. They don't care. So that's the beginning of my tier 2, and I'm going to go through my second tier here, or my third tier here for you. So we talked about this is now RB11 Jahmyr Gibbs, RB12 Najee Harris. In the same tier, I've got Travis Etienne, Ramondre Stevenson, and Rachaad White. Now, again, these are for
No
me.
No Walker in there, right?
No. Walker's pushed down to the next tier after that for me, and I'll talk about this next tier in a minute. But Gibbs, Harris, Etienne, Stevenson, and White, and you know what they all have in common, Sislowski? These guys all have the job, and they got it locked down. I mean, you might not love Najee Harris, but he's the starting running back for the Steelers, and that's his role, and he's going to probably keep it.
Do you buy into the Jaylen Warren hype that he's gonna
stop?
I'm saying I don't either.
No.
But there is a large faction that believes that Jaylen Warren is going to be in a timeshare with Najee Harris this year. I don't think so either. Najee was hurt in the first half of last year. He had the Liz Frank, and when he came back from his injury, that's when he had all of his big games.
He looked good. He looked good coming back. So no, I don't really buy into that. So I think Harris has it locked down. I don't know if your rankings are different, but I think Harris got the starting job locked down. He's going to get a lot of touches. Travis Etienne with the Jaguars. Jaguars offense elevated. I'm still lacking. I'm still missing something from Etienne. I'm still riding his college career a little bit here. I would like to see them throw to him more than two or three times a game. I don't understand why he was billed as a pass catcher. We're not seeing it. I haven't seen as many explosive plays out of him as I would like to. But primarily, I think if you could just step up his passing game work just a little bit, he can. Travis Etienne, and again, I think we're ranking him number 12 overall, right? I think he has the potential, or 13 overall. I've got him here. I think he has the potential to be a top 6 scorer if the volume is there.
Yeah. I mean, right here, like you said, I think you defined the tier perfectly. I can't add anything more than that. These are guys with the job, project to be, that have little risks, little dings on their profile, but that are great picks. They're the reason you go receiver because you're getting these guys in the third round.
This is what's so important about this third and fourth. We're getting into the third, even the fourth and fifth round here with some of these names, and you could just wait. Because these guys are waiting here. Ramondre Stevenson, who's the competition for touches? This guy has done nothing but smash when he's been given opportunities. Who's the comp for touches there? Kevin Harris?
Right now, I mean, for a little bit, it was Ty Montgomery, right? I mean, they've been flirting with Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette. It seems like that Bill Belichick is wanting to bring in a veteran, which does make sense. But as of right now, no, there is not a lot of touch competition. Pierre Strong, we've heard his name rattled around there, but there is really. I'm looking it up as we're talking. I don't see anyone on the depth chart that presents a threat to Ramondre Stevenson other than, here I go. I got it up right here, Geek. The running back position as listed on their official depth chart right now is Ty Montgomery, Pierre Strong, and Kevin Harris. We had it right, which basically means this is a threat for a veteran, right? If they can agree on price.
Yes. So I've got him ranked as if the veteran is already there.
Yeah. So and I think most rankings do. I think that's the right way to do it.
I've got him ranked as if they brought in Fournette, right?
It could be Kareem Hunt
or Hunt. How do they not?
It could be Kenyon Drake. I mean, we don't.
Well, no, Kenyon Drake. I'm moving him up. But if it's not a competitive veteran, they bring in Chase Edmonds, the classic backup running back that never does anything. Okay. Then I'm moving him up ahead, and he gets into tier 2 for me. He's going in there with Mixon in that group, right? If they actually don't, we are in training camp now, and they still don't have a guy. So about a week and a half from now, he moves up in the ranking for me to the next tier up. But I love Ramondre. If you get solo Dre, you are killing it this year in your fantasy league, and you can wait. You don't have to take him early. This is why you can stud up at wide receiver. And the last for me in this position group says is Rachaad White. And this is very off ADP. This is as off ADP as it gets.
Yeah, he goes. I got him in the 7th round of our NFFC draft.
Should have been me. Should have been me. I'm not happy about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be upset if anyone ranked. I mean, the camp reports are that the coaches see him as a 3-down back.
Yes.
Yeah, he's going to be if his ADP stays there. The problem is that he's going to have a good play in the preseason and move up into the 5th and 4th round. But right now, I think it's safe to say that if you had him at RB12, I wouldn't even hate on it.
This is what I'm saying, and you're talking about the high dollar NFFC draft that you're referring to.
They don't like him in there.
They don't like it. That happened like last week. We're like 3 days ago. So
the reason is because of the team. They don't like Baker Mayfield. Okay. They don't like the Bucs. So that's why. And you always talk about how you don't like running backs on bad teams. Why is Rachaad White different?
You know what? You know what's different about Rachaad White? Number one, he's on a bad team that's in a terrible division. So as bad as that team is, they're probably not going to be completely out of games. It's not like the 2022 Texans. Like, we're not talking about, it's not like the 2023 Cardinals that are going to be out of every game after 5 minutes and they're going to be so far behind. There's a reason James Conner is high up here. That's because I don't like players on teams that lose every single game of the season. That is not a good scene for me, although I think Conner is an interesting sleeper. But for White, Baker Mayfield checks down to the running back. He's produced quality running back outcomes for years. As a matter of fact, we talk about Kareem Hunt. Why do we know who Kareem Hunt is? Because it was Baker Mayfield throwing passes to him at the Browns, and him doing it as a pass catching back under Baker Mayfield with the Cleveland Browns. So to me, I really like the spot for Rachaad White, full workload 7th rounder. And in this next tier, by the way, so that breaks down tier number 3, and that's our top 15 running backs, and let's go to 24 here, says. But
you want to just touch on a few of these guys?
Yeah, I'll just kind of go through them. I'm going to name the name, and you tell me your thoughts on him. So in this next group, and I have it pretty much as just one big group here, and it goes from Cam Akers down to Alexander Mattison at the bottom of the tier. But I got Cam Akers up next, Rams starting running back, no competition. From there, Kenneth Walker, Seahawks. I'm definitely concerned about Chardonnay.
Well, they're saying Zach Charbonnet now is going to be out for a while. Like, he may not be ready for week 1 with that shoulder injury. And now Kenneth Walker has a groin right now, and if he makes it back first, and you're getting him in the 5th and 6th round, Kenneth Walker, that could be one of the answers. I would still bet on Kenneth Walker, whereas because the news, normally Pete Carroll's a little bit more optimistic about injuries. He's not been optimistic about Zach Charbonnet's injury. Now, again, he'll be back, but if he misses training camp as a rookie, misses week 1,
that is a big plus. So this is all new, and I don't mind if you want to elevate Kenny Walker at that point.
But he's hurt too, so it's okay to keep him where you have him.
Yeah. After that, and this is one of my, I'm going to call this a geek special. Again, it's another player that's winding up on all my teams because I'm just really high on him relative to the field. But I really want people to take a chance this year on Miles Sanders with the Panthers. And I just think that it's a new team, new environment. This team produced really good, much like the aforementioned Falcons. The Panthers produced really good outcomes to the running back position last year. I remember it was Chuba Hubbard and D'Onta Foreman, I believe, last season, and they had a great year combined. Like, there was a lot of goodness coming off of that team at the running back position, and I think Miles Sanders needed a change of scenery. I love the Eagles, great offense, but they could care less about the running back. He was only getting 10 or 12 touches a game, and I don't know that that's because he sucks. I just think that's the Eagles' way of playing the running back position. We'll find out this year if something changes, but that's been so. I like Miles Sanders.
Who would you prefer, Miles Sanders or Cam Akers?
I have them effectively. I have Akers one ahead of him. So I guess it's Akers, but it's probably Akers, but it's barely. This whole group is so similar to me. If you had a different order for this, I have no problem with that. These are all late picks. So I'll keep it going here. J.K. Dobbins, same guy as the other two we just mentioned. There's no difference. I like J.K. Dobbins here. That's fine. You'll be happy if you draft him this year. And maybe with with Lamar running a little bit less, maybe they throw to the running back a couple times. I don't know. J.K. Dobbins. And then rounding out my fourth tier, RB number 20, Alexander Madison.
I like that. I mean, I'm pro Madison. I know a lot of there's been some pushback that people don't like Madison this year, but he's got the workload. They gave him, a decent contract to be the number one. I mean, he could have gone anywhere in free agency. This was at the time he was free to go. They signed him back. They must have told him that they were getting rid of Dalvin Cook or that he was probably out the door. And we do like the Vikings offense. So I think that he, Evan Silva actually has him as his 24th overall player. I heard him say that in the podcast. That's a little rich. Not 24th running back, 24th overall player.
Madison?
Yeah, he had him as a second-round pick. He knows he doesn't have to take him there, but he said he would if he had to. I thought that was a little aggressive, but that's okay. Evan's been around a long time. He knows what he's talking about. It opened my eyes a little bit. I'm very comfortable with Madison as a fifth-round pick.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen what Madison can do, and he's on a team that produces to the running back. There's nothing not to like here. Just the fact that he's not a special player or anything unique, but they didn't bring in any backups or any particular threat. So it looks like it's Madison's team. I like it. So all right, we did our top 20 running back says, and we are in lockstep. Like outside of a couple of weird spots, like we're pretty close to lockstep here. So outside of this top 20, now everybody needs 24 running backs are starting in every single league. A lot of times you got 36. So outside of this top 20 group, give me two of your favorite sort of, I can get them 8, 9, 10. I get them outside of the starting zone, outside of the top 24. And to round out my top 24, I've got Pierce. I've got Damian Pierce in there, Aaron Jones. I don't like this group very much. Montgomery, Connor, and Swift in that next sort of group. So rounding out my top 24. But outside of that group, this is where I want to throw it back to you. Give me two Kozlowski sleepers. Don't go crazy. I don't need Jerome Ford. I'm talking about real sleepers that they're going in your flex. They're playing early. Don't tell me the backup if two guys get hurt. I don't care.
Right. No, that's a really good point.
I mean, give you that because I know you're coming with some Ford and some Mason and some. No, I'm talking about players that can play and you can start them early.
Yeah, I think that I hit on earlier saying David Montgomery's in a good spot, and he's going in the 8th round of fantasy football drafts. He's a better player than Jamal Williams, who was the short yardage back on Detroit last year and led the NFL in touchdowns. So if you want to make that one-to-one comparison, I think Montgomery, if you're not taking Jahmyr Gibbs, I could take them both. I wouldn't mind. The other one, I don't think we're going to agree on this, but I think Antonio Gibson is set up to at least where he's going in the 7th, 8th round to be a fantasy football starter with some pass-catching upside. New offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy has already said he wants to get him involved in the passing game. And the third guy is, even though there's been some good news on Javonte Williams, Samaje Perine, who was the first player signed in free agency. I mean, the Broncos were like, I want him. And he was good when he was doing that pass-catching role on the Bengals. So now he's fallen to the 10th round. If you are in like zero running back mode, or if you just need like a 4th running back on your team, or 3rd if you went tight end and QB early, I really like Samaje Perine. The coach just told you everything you need to know about him. Now, if Javonte Williams is up to speed, then he'll still be involved. He's going to be like an 8-9 touch player. So those are the three: Perine, Gibson, and Montgomery.
I love it. I love the sleeper call. And remember, you guys are watching the Bold Call Fantasy Football Podcast. Let us know who your favorite sleeper running backs outside the top 24. Let us know in the comments section. Who are your favorites? Who are you drafting? Who are you hanging your hat on in best ball in your season long? In the comment section below. I'm going to tell you, Kozlowski, my 3, and you nailed 3 really good ones. So I'm going to go a little off the reservation here, a little bit. So number 1 for me, and this is way down in RB42 overall. Like, he is way down. How about Jerick McKinnon on the Chiefs? And I mean, I don't know. Isaiah Pacheco is hurt. Is he hurt for the whole preseason? When's he coming back? Right? Like, he's hurt. We've had good games out of McKinnon. They brought him back. What's not to like about Jerick McKinnon, as your last pick in your league? Not a bad spot.
That's a good call. I really like McKinnon there. You know what? Someone that I didn't say, I hope you're going to say, is we received word that Alvin Kamara is going to be suspended. We don't know how long for. Which Saints running back do you think represents a good value for drafters?
Yeah, I wasn't going to touch on that because I don't know.
Is it Jamal Williams?
I think it's Jamal Williams. I
Yeah.
don't think it's the rookie. I don't think it's going to be the rookie.
Kendra Miller.
Yeah, Kendre Miller. I forgot his name, so thank you for reminding me. I don't think it's going to be Kendre Miller, but Kendre Miller is worth draft. I mean, if it's one of your last picks,
Yeah, I took him in the 16th round of a
you
draft
want to take
recently.
a guy like that on your
All
team.
right, so who else are your
Get her.
sleepers?
So my next one, and Devon Achane, rookie running back from the Miami Dolphins, and this is more of a flex play with some upside. He is very, very small. He is prohibitively small. He makes Jahmyr Gibbs look like freaking, Hulk Hogan, right? He is just 189 pounds, but it seems like the Dolphins like these little speed guys and could make use of him. So again, last pick, late pick, but he's got a little bit of that. That reminds me of a little Tarek Cohen. Can break a few games a year kind of upside. So I'm interested in him. I don't think I'm comfortable starting him, but I'm interested in him. But one guy who I think will give you early season goodness before he gets hurt is Rashad Penny on the Eagles. So that's one more name. I don't want to spend a lot of draft capital on any of these guys. These are, if you've got a 6-man bench, these are like numbers 4, 5, and 6, maybe 5 and 6, or if you're in an 8-man bench, maybe 7 and 8. These are coming late. But Rashad Penny, I'll put him on my team. He might surprise. He's been elite as a running back when healthy. He can only last generally like 4 or 5 games. But there used to be a time when a lot of players who seemed super injury prone, all of a sudden it stopped happening and they were fine for a while. I don't think it's going to go that way with Penny, but I'm willing to take some shots on him. Let me throw something back to you. James Conner, where do you fall with him? Because he's obviously a starting running back on a team.
Yeah, I like James Conner
really well, but I mean that team is horrible.
Yeah, if you need a running back in the 7th round, James Conner's already done it multiple times. He's the running back that nobody likes, but catches passes. He's a 3-down starter. The team's going to be bad, but the price is right on him. So I would take Conner if I was desperate in the 6th round, but I'm very happy on the price of the 7th, 8th round. So I am pro Conner, especially since you don't have to pay for him. It's not like he's in the past, he was been like a 3rd round pick, right? If Kyler Murray was the starting quarterback and healthy, James Conner would be considered like in the 3rd and 4th round probably. It's just the unknown at quarterback. And how many times have we said, oh, this team's going to be horrible? Now, I agree, the Cardinals project to be one of the worst teams, Geek, but we thought Seattle was going to be one of the worst teams. They ended up, and so did everybody. So
they don't have a Geno in Arizona.
We don't know that. This Clayton Tune is the 4th round rookie, which obviously you'd always bet against that. And Colt McCoy, Carson Wentz is still out there. You would think that if they wanted him, he would already be on the roster. So it's more bleak. But Geno Smith in our Superflex leagues, Geek, was on the waiver wire. That's how little we thought of him last year.
We thought very poorly of Geno, and he had a great year. So you're right, and we faded every player tied to Geno last year for that reason, and of course that burned us.
So the Conner is, I think that he's probably, just as I think Breece Hall is one of the worst picks in fantasy football, Conner is probably one of the best picks you can make, not because he's good or flashy or sexy, but because of what you're going to get versus what you're going to pay in draft cost.
Let me ask you this: you mentioned Hall, and we talked about Javonte coming off injury. Is there any place that you take them, or they both go so far ahead of where you'd ever value them that it just will never happen for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to get if I'm taking Breece Hall, I'm going to get in a place where he's never falling, so I'm never going to get him. But if he fell into the 8th round, I would take him.
To that extent, okay.
Yeah, it's never going to happen because the first 7 picks are guys that I'm every week starting. I'm taking my quarterback. I'm taking my starting tight end. So maybe the 7th round, I would do it if I'd have. But I just want, I want to get off to a fast start in my league. I want to be 4-1. I want to be 3 and 2 at worst, because when you're 2 and 3 and then you're like, oh, every win counts. You just 5-0 would be great. You want to have that nice comfortable lead and then work your team, massage it through the waiver wire, make some trades to keep it going.
When your team starts strong, one of the things that you're afforded is the luxury of not having to blow your fob on a 2-week guy.
You could trade from a position of strength too.
Yeah, you're two amazing things for your team. trading for positions are very underrated. That's great. You want to be
Right.
the guy that people are coming to for the trade, number one. So they're
You
desperate and you're
right.
fine.
You
You don't
have
mind.
like a marginal starter that's doing well. You have Sky Moore that's putting up wide receiver 12 overall numbers plus a running back on your bench that you upgrade into Chris Godwin with or
You
something.
combo them, yeah, and you get somebody good. So that's great. And the other thing is, of course, what I said with the fob, where if I'm behind, I'm blowing my full fob on a 2 week guy, like an ankle is sprained, and I'm like the backup, blow fob. Why? Because if I don't win this week, I'm done. So it allows you, it affords you that luxury of not having to do that, which is always great. All right, that's going to do it for our running back rankings here in the Bowl Call Fantasy Football Podcast. Remember, as always, Alan Seslowski here with me. You can catch him at RotoWire at Alan Seslowski on Twitter. He'll answer your fantasy football questions. He's Kevin, you could follow me at FFootballGeek on Twitter or sign up at the FS Army. Get in our Discord. Link is in the description below. You can check out my full best ball and full season long rankings on the DFSArmy.com website. We are opening them up. They're not behind a paywall, so you can just take a look, check it out. If you want to follow how I draft and crush, then follow the rankings. If you want to, there's other rankings out there too. If you don't want to win, what are you going to do? All right, that's going to do it. Let us know what you think in the comment section below. We'll see you guys on another Bowl Call.